Bonjour everyone, Pantoufleee here today for a new video following my 60 TP one, in which we're going to talk about the 50 TP, the tier 9 of the branch, which looks kind of similar to the 60 TP in terms of playstyle, with obviously less and worse statistics, which is kind of logic. First of all, let me introduce you to the statistics of the tank when you fully equip it with a 100% crew mastery. Basically, you have an amazing gun dispersion sitting at 0.31. The DPM is not that great, 2.2k, but still relevant enough for you to be the king of the battlefield. 12.37 seconds of reload, 250 millimeters of penetration, 303 with your regular shell, and the average damage is 460. The only downside of this gun, in my opinion, is the penetration using gold shell, because 303 is not necessarily enough for you to go through most of the targets. But don't worry, if you use the right equipments, for example calibrated shell, you will get yourself something juicy, and that climbs up to 380. But here, as it's one of my first game with it, I know I'm going to be top tier, so I'm not going to bother. I'm going to play it with this equipment, the first one that allows you to reload fast. For the rest of the tank, let's say that the top speed is not good on paper, but actually really good if you use the right provisions, because here you're sitting at 36 kilometers, but when you're using the provision called improved gear oil, I want to remind you that you can climb up to a little bit more, making it a good tank when it comes to the mobility, so we're not going to bother. For the rest, let's say that the whole turn rate is good, the turret traverse is good as well on the tier 9 turrets, so nothing to bother too much about. On top of that, you have 8 degrees of gun depression, making once again those polished tanks especially good at all down. And another important thing to notice about the 50 TP is how good the armor profile is. Just take a look at that. This is supposed to be the weak spot, and you feature 250 millimeters of armor, which implies that a lot of tier 8 will struggle penetrating you. On top of that, what was supposed to be a weak spot is not necessarily one on top of the hull, especially because it features 240 millimeters of penetration of armor, which implies that if you don't have above that, it's impossible for you to penetrate it. And on top of that, if you use your 8 degrees of gun depression, you are going to see that it becomes even harder for your enemies to penetrate, because here it's now 285 millimeters of penetration, which makes it definitely a better tank. Now for the rest, you still have those cupolas, as you can see, that are quite easy to penetrate, but when you're in all down, nobody sees them. And to be fair, this is not the biggest issue with the tank, knowing that you feature an impressive armor that is impossible to penetrate on your whole turret. Just take a look at that, 420 millimeters, 450, 250. This is definitely going to be a beast in all down. Now, let's talk a little bit about the equipments. First, the consumables. I'm using the brand new one, the tungsten rounds, which allows you to get a better alpha damage every time you shoot, at least for a duration of 20 seconds. For the rest, for the provision especially, as I told you, I was using, and I'm using, improved gear oil in order to get a better mobility. And for the equipments, first I go for the gun rammer because my penetration is enough, but you could switch off to calibrated shell if you think that 380 millimeters of penetration with your gold shell is better. After, I go for the enhanced gun lane drive in order to reduce a little bit my aim time, which kind of sucks on this tank because it sits at 5 freaking seconds. The refined gun in order to get a better accuracy when I'm not moving. The defense system because I'm not gonna ram anyone. The improved assembly because I don't need to get more armor, I already have enough. Toolbox because an interact is useless. Improved optics because I'm not gonna camp, I don't need a camo. Engine accelerator to increase even more, featuring the improved fuel, my mobility. To finish off with the consumable delivery system in order for me to get a better cooldown for my consumables, to use tungsten shell more often on the battlefield. So concerning the replay, we have the pleasure of being top tier, which is definitely going to help us quite a lot, simply because with our lack of penetration with overall the regular and the gold shell, let's say that this is the perfect matchmaking. So there we go. At first I was on my phone, so I didn't take a look at what was going on, and therefore I didn't see that the match started. But it's not a problem because we only lost like maybe 5 seconds, and it's not going to be problematic for us to jump into the battlefield. As you can see, my team decided to go on the right side of the map, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but as a heavy tank I would rather play in the town. So I'm gonna try to find an in-between to that situation by going on this little side right here, this position especially, from which you can hold down, in order for me to be able to play both with the rest of my team in order to support them, but also being able by myself to sneak some shots at the beginning. And it seems like the enemies all decided to go in the town. Unfortunately, I did not manage to penetrate the 704, and he's now coming for me. I'm gonna wait for the whole reload, and there is something huge and problematic that I did at the beginning of the replay. I completely forgot to enable tungsten shell, allowing me to get more damage on the 704. But it's not a problem because after all, I will keep it for maybe a better moment. So the T-44 got completely snapped out of existence simply because he did not pay attention to what was in the town. If you take a look at the map closely right now, you will see that we are literally surrounded by the whole enemy team. So I decided to pull back to take maybe a safe cover in order to be able to help a little bit on the cap circle. There we go. We sting the first one on the 047, and here I'm gonna realize that I completely forgot about tungsten shell, and I'm gonna activate it shooting at the 50 TP and the M60. Of course, as the main threat here is the 50 TP, I'm gonna focus on him using tungsten shell, and boom, there we go. We got the high alpha roll, 575. What a shot, and it's not gonna stop now because we're gonna have a lot of fun against that 50 TP, which is going to be our main opponent. There we go. I sneak in another one using tungsten, and once again I do a high roll. And now let's say that I want to retreat, because if I push forward I'm probably gonna get wrecked because he's with a friend, the M30. But if I try to help the rest of my team, and especially that 50 TP on the VK4002B, I will probably be able to first get my damage, but also keep my hit points for maybe a more crucial time of the replay. So there we go. Let's see if we can penetrate something. I can't see the 50 TP, and I know he's gonna shoot me as soon as I sneak one on the ISU, but I tested anyway, and I got myself lucky that my shot penetrated the ISU. But unfortunately, the ISU is not going to stop now because it seems like he's a little bit upset. So there we go. We are praying for the high roll, and we got blessed by the RNG gods. We killed the guy, securing our first kill, and now we are ended up in a 3 versus 3 situation. But of course, as we see, the VK is getting soon killed, and it's exactly what happens. And now once again I have to deal with someone that is pushing me straight because he wants to get me off the battlefield. Not a problem, we're gonna push as well, and we sneak the first one that unfortunately bounced. Why did it bounce? Because I shot at the gun. And as I told you in my 60 TP review, when you're shooting at the gun of the tank, you will bounce. And I'm going to use the tactic the enemy just used in order to make him bounce for the second shot. Because if I do not manage to do this, he will probably kill me. So there we go. I'm showing and exposing my gun. It worked because my gun got attacked and damaged, unlike the rest of my tank. And there we go, we killed the guy, and now we only have to focus on the M30. We kill it with the tungsten shell, we get ourselves 3 kills, 4.5k damage, and we ended up that game. As you can see, we did 2 tactics, side scrape and hold down, which are the 2 main tactics you need to use with the 50 TP that will allow you to get the first class or even the ace tanker soon in the future. So in definitive, is it a tank to keep in your garage? In my opinion, yes, even if it's not the best tier 9 that is implemented by Wargaming so far, but it still has all those special specs, the mobility, the armor, and the gun, that makes it quite enjoyable as a grind. So hopefully you enjoyed. If that's the case, feel free to subscribe, like, and share, and I'm gonna see you soon for a new video. Bye.